Welcome to Post Apocalyptic Show. This is Rob.
This is John.
So now the core of the show is about to begin. There are a lot of great movies in the 80s. Favorite movie, John?
Favorite movie of the 80s, Back to the Future.
We are not going to be talking about Back to the Future.
We are not.
We are going to hit all the movies that were released in the 80s that just sort of fell through the crack.
Yeah, the forgotten ones, the ones that you should have watched or should have heard about, I should have said.
Or after some of these maybe not have seen, or the reason why they're not hits anymore.
Exactly.
And so the first movie we're going to do is a movie called Windows. The first movie released in 1980. It's the first 80s movie.
80s movie directed, the only movie directed by legendary cinematographer Gordon Willis.
Yes, first and only movie that he directed. His lineage is amazing.
Godfather, All the President's Men, to name a few.
Then I think it was Manhattan, Annie Hall,
yeah.
Cinematographer to the stars, I guess.
One of the GOATs, one of the greatest of all time, absolutely. I don't know if there's anything to be said that this is his first and only.
Yeah, so that'll be the thing. So I'm imagining, without knowing anything about this movie, is Talia Shire is in it. We'll go at the end when we review it a little more. We'll go in with the cast and everything. I'm hoping that it's going to look good.
Yeah.
I imagine he's going to set a look.
You hope. You hope. Sometimes, cinematographers, in my experience, you think, well, at least it's going to look amazing.
Right.
And I don't know. You never know. Because they're focusing on directing. What
was the one movie directed by Nolan's cinematographer, Transcendent, the one with Johnny Depp? It was Wally Pfister.
Wally Pfister?
Yes.
Wally Pfister. He's an Instagram guy. Yeah.
Because that was a movie that no one saw and no one liked, but it should have been.
I know.
He had the cast, he had everything.
Because it looked good. I didn't see it, but in the trailer.
So when people review the movies of 2000, here's the one no one saw by the one and only
Transcendent or something like that. But yeah, it doesn't always pan out that way. But I would imagine he's very particular about cinematography. So we'll see.
Yeah. So we're gonna dive into Windows. We'll do a little wrap up at the end and see what our thoughts are on the first movie released in 1980.
Windows.
The Bill Gates story.
Exactly.
All right. Watch us watch. Windows, everyone.
Windows.
It's not a great title.
It got, 4 out of 5 stars? Is that what it said?
I think it's 4 out of 10.
Oh.
I think they do what is it?
Oh, okay.
Trans-America Company. God, we're United Artists.
It's like the building in San Francisco.
We're in a tunnel?
I think.
Is it a roller coaster? Is it a window?
Credits.
Oh my god, that was the best movie ever. So I wonder if this was, I guess I would have to look, Talia Shire's first movie after Rocky, the next big one. Because Rocky was 77, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Because that was different now, people, if you're in something big, you're automatically in the next.
Right.
Hi.
Maybe it was.
It's a tunnel?
Emily? Can
I think it's a tunnel.
Aren't you leaving early?
Venue or
Anything
something.
is late.
Oh.
Okay.
So he did his own. Oh, okay.
I think he.
Maybe that's why he didn't do anything else. I can't do everything.
Right.
Pure.
Wouldn't be an 80s movie without some sort of rape.
Exactly.
Why?
First movie.
Oh, never forget.
Oh, that.
Maybe this was an homage to Rocky.
I think exactly that's what it feels like.
What's going on? I mean, I don't want to laugh, but I mean, this is crazy.
I'm sure it all coming together.
Tied right at the end.
Right.
Stock shot the movie.
Right? Make sure you know, man.
Two good friends.
Generous poor.
Mm-hmm. Like a double.
This is such a beautiful
2020 poor.
That's true. That's exactly what you found today.
dinner.
What a weird shift.
That was a big shift.
Like just walking up and then the music kicks in. Good music. I mean,
The
not gonna-
music, yeah, but then it signals, because there's no other music.
I mean, she was raped a day ago. And he's the detective.
Right.
You know everyone in this movie is probably like 32, right? But they all look like 50.
I know, that's what I was just thinking. Like, there's no way she's more than 30. 32.
I'm like probably 20 years older than everyone in this movie, but yet somehow still seem young.
Your home.
My phone might be
Watching? Yeah, exactly.
Look at you in
Oh my god, look how far away they're sitting too.
contentment.
Great shot.
Mhm.
What?
What the hell happened? Did you drink that fast? Drunk? Can't overlook it. Wow. Oh, come on. Uber.
Oh, with a nice brown decor.
Exactly. Dark brown.
I guess this is the poster.
Say, are you still out of coffee?
I never was.
Wait, what?
What?
But you showed us the empty can. That's the last line. All right, that was the first movie of the 1980s.
Wow. And, I mean, being the first movie of the 1980s, it has to be, the way
Yeah.
these things work, it has to be a large part
Right.
written and directed in the 70s, late 70s, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was released the second week of January, so it being an 80s movie, so, I mean, I know it's sort of a cusp for what this show is, but it's an 80s movie overall.
Yeah, no, I
And-
mean, I think it sort of started some of the things of the 80s, but all the 80s movies, like this one with sort of the pacing that was very slow and
Yeah.
methodical, those things sort of happen within into the 80s, even with the iconic, even though it was played for laughs, the iconic Howard the Duck.
Yeah, of course.
When he comes home and you see the playbill, you see all these
Yeah.
things, but it's just like a long credit sequence of just coming home and doing nothing.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff in sort of this movie is where you going, like you said, you're going to the door, you're
Yeah.
putting the mail up, you're walking up the stairs to the apartment, and you see them walk up the stairs, and
So much footage of people walking.
yeah,
A lot. Well, actually, in the beginning, there's a lot of running.
it's a lot of running.
So we just give props to everything. It's, as we said, directed by Gordon Willis, who was the cinematographer for
Which I-
Godfather.
I thought we didn't know anything else, so I thought he may have had another cinematographer
Yeah.
because
He was also the cinematographer.
directing is a big job, but I'm sure
I
he's
would have
not.
said, had I not known his lineage, I would have still said this movie was shot well. Like,
Totally.
if you didn't know, like, his history, going into it's a little, like, you're sort of judging it a little more. Not the Godfather. Well,
Right.
It's not going to be. But he knows how to shoot a movie.
I mean, it was well shot for sure, and his choices and his very artistic,
Yeah.
very artistic choices.
A
So
lot of artistic choices. The writer Barry Siegel was the first and only movie as well. Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. My guess, he wrote the movie, didn't like the outcome of the movie.
Usually, you get sort of one. It's like his Beyond the Valley of the Dolls that Roger Ebert did. It's like that's your one.
It was nominated for 5 Razzies.
It was. Did it lose in all of them?
It lost all. So that's good.
That's good, right?
If you lose a Razzie, worst picture, worst screenplay, worst actress, worst supporting actress,
Wow.
and worst director. It lost worst picture to Can't Stop the Music.
I don't know that one.
I looked it up and it looked like the Village People were on the cover, so my guess it was like it lost to a movie that was very 70s, is my guess.
Yeah.
Screenplay, Can't Stop the Music, which I now want to watch.
Right, because it's just...
But it was released in the 70s, so it doesn't count as one of our movies. Worst actress, Brooke Shields, Blue Lagoon.
That's a universal sort of pick.
But I don't know, like, I think I saw Blue Lagoon very young. And
yeah, me too.
Obviously. But it didn't stick out. I bet if I watched it now, it would be like...
That'd be interesting. Yeah, because it didn't stick out to me either, so I just didn't know why.
I also probably wouldn't have said that as a kid.
Yeah.
This acting is terrible, Mom.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Worst supporting actress to Amy Irving for Honeysuckle Rose. I remember the movie. I know Amy Irving, but I don't remember her performance. I barely remember the movie. Worst director to Xanadu.
All right,
Windows. Forgettable.
It's forgettable, and it has some talent behind it, you know. And I mean, particularly with the obvious thing, which is the cinematography, is fantastic.
Talia Shire.
Talia Shire, she's great.
She was definitely hired for playing the mousy. Basically like we want Adrian.
If you want mousy Adrian, like she's the go-to, and you got her. I think it's forgettable just because of the story. I just think that I still don't quite know. You know how you leave the theater or. And you're like, what was the
theater, which is behind John right now?
Exactly. What was the point? What was the what was sort of the end game of that, or what was this movie trying to say?
Right.
And if we get into that, there's some real disturbing things about that.
Right.
About what it says, but. I just think that there was an idea behind it, what the writer wanted to do, and it just wasn't executed that well.
It was kind of like Single White Female, in a way.
Yeah.
It's about an obsessive person, but a lot of this is played through how we see movies now. Like, we can fill in all the gaps. Had we saw this when we were, say, I would have been 7 or 6 when this movie came out.
Yeah.
I would have been 6. I wouldn't have seen this movie in the theater. But let's just say I'm 22 or something, and I go, this is my date movie. So say, she's obsessive only because of the end result. You never see anything. They don't really show you anything. It's just sort of happens. Like, because the main, Andrea and Emily, obviously they're doing something. I remember the names.
Emily is the main protagonist, Adrian. And Andrea is the friend, or the best friend.
Yeah. Like, there was a lot of outrage in this movie about the portrayal of homosexuals and being violent and obsessive. Had I seen this film, I would have probably ended up seeing this film probably in 87, probably on HBO. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have went, see, all homosexuals are crazy and they get obsessive. It's not portrayed at that because honestly, you really don't know that it alludes that she might be gay, but there's no talk about it. It's not.
And by she, you mean Andrea.
Andrea, yeah. Because Emily is down with the blank slate of a cop.
Right. Yeah.
Mr. Personality.
She has a romantic relationship with the wooden detective.
Yeah, wooden detective.
So that is handling her case, but
also dating her,
but also wants to date her like very shortly after a rape.
Yeah,
she's been raped.
You're my type of girl.
Which I think is
sadly a theme of our 80s adventure is there's going to be a lot of rape.
Sadly enough, yes. I mean, it's true though.
I don't want to make light of that. They don't show anything. It's more, you feel actually, I thought they did a really good job in the sense of that you feel more creeped out because it's just a close-up of her face crying, in a very shadowy version of the guy having her say things so he can record it. Like, I think that was very effective as opposed to seeing something, because sometimes seeing less tells you more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't help but thinking about Gordon's other movies that he shot, namely Godfather.
Yeah.
And then the open scene in The Godfather, Marlon Brando's talking to.
Okay.
And he's got he shot in shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it, the way the shadows fall on his face, you can see an outline of his skull.
Oh.
And he's going to die.
Oh.
So it sort of foreshadows it in an very artistic way. So I think Gordon uses these shadows in this way. And so from that, that's his thing. So when I saw, the rapist, in the shadow, and a very interesting sort of shadow because his face is very distinct as well.
Yeah.
That sort of I knew he was doing something there, and it is obviously made for effect. But you're right, it was very creepy, and we knew we don't need to go into a blow by blow rape.
Yeah.
We know what he's going to do, and he's very sinister. He has a knife and everything. Yeah. So yes, I thought that was effective.
Oddly enough, for what this movie is, and I think some of the downfalls reading about, some of it is there's the rape scene, and it portrays homosexuality very negative. No nudity, no derogatory terms. That actually kind of blew me away. Other than that, I mean, this almost plays PG.
Yeah, the R. Do you know the rating?
I do not know the rating.
Today probably would be PG, I think.
It's an R. The poster tells us it's an R.
Yeah, and I think it's an R because of the knife stuff. There's no PG-13 yet,
and probably the alluding to homosexuality, because that's the thing.
That too, yeah.
They never kiss. She never forces herself on. Andrea never forces herself on Emily. The closest is she wipes a tear away, but not even in a seductive way. It was wipes her face a little bit after the creepy guy tries to attack again.
Yeah, sort of a lot of complaints about PG and R and that sort of thing. So the PG-13 is sort of the middle ground. But I would score it an R too at that time.
Yeah.
The knife to the neck and all that kind of stuff is kind of hard to keep the.
Yeah, you're not gonna bring a kid.
Yeah, and especially when there is rape involved.
I mean, that alone is
you can't bring a kid. Yeah, exactly. I thought it could have been a horror. I would have made this up.
Yeah, if he could have pushed a few more buttons.
Yeah.
And made it a really just sort of suspenseful, creepy horror film. Let's talk about the color palette.
Ooh, brown. Let's talk browns. Let's talk shades of brown.
Shades of brown,
Yeah, it's definitely brown and dark, and darkness is something that it helps them. It's as part of the palette. I get it.
Yeah.
Because you sort of want that sort of mood, but everything is brown. Everything is quote unquote earth tones or autumn colors, and it's just it's to the point where it's everywhere, and I think it's interesting because everything matters. So as a filmmaker, you have so many tools in the toolbox, and a lot of filmmakers, Gordon Willis shouldn't be one of them because he's a world-class cinematographer, don't use them. Now, I know the word that kept coming up is his choices, and this was a choice that he made very deliberately, but it affected you, it affected me in a way, and that's what's the power of the color palette, which I'll just bring it up to today. A lot of indie filmmakers, they don't utilize that and don't worry about that. So then when you see, for me, when I see a lot of like sort of indie films, everything is washed in this like sort of drab, boring, I say palette, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just like, okay, well, we only have the budget for this, let's just shoot. But you can always make an effort to really utilize color.
Even if it's just wardrobe.
In a
like
wardrobe.
I get it, like, we're also watching the film probably not the way it was intended. I mean, watching it at home, they would have been blown away that I have a 70-inch TV at home.
Sure.
I think Gordon's head would have exploded. But we don't know how rich all the color was. But there was one scene with Andrea at one of her apartments. She sort of had a satin top on, which I imagine maybe popped. It was bluish. I wondered if it was more blue in on a first gen print or something like that.
And the bright blue wouldn't work because her character wasn't necessarily this sort of bright.
No, she wouldn't have been. But it seemed like that would have been maybe a little more color for her.
Yeah, but something to contrast though.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be like sequins, but it's just something that just like contrast because her character is so out of the norm of any of the other characters, the detective, Emily, and all that. Like she's like the outlier that we're trying to figure out.
She's like the rich friend that you would have never guessed was the rich friend for some reason.
What does she do? What is she doing? How are they?
You don't need to know any of that stuff. It's just sort of like she's the rich friend. I'll buy it.
Yeah. Right. And
but my favorite is they didn't show it. It was like, hey, a friend of yours stopped by. She was driving a sports car. I get it. You're playing up the fact that she has a lot of money, but I like that it's like, look, we can't rent a sports car. We don't have that kind of money. It's just sort of like she was just have him say she was in a sports car.
Totally. I don't need to see the sports car, but I did need to see something more in some of these scenes where it's like, you cut from like in the final climax, with Emily and Andrea, and then you like dissolve to when everything happens, when we just don't see that on the screen.
Yeah, we get the exposition.
Yeah, it's like
this is what you just missed.
Right.
Yeah, but we were there. You could have shown us what happened.
And so a lot of that was frustrating. A lot of sort of you have these tonal shifts that happen very abruptly.
Yeah.
And there's no gradation. It's just you go right into it. Like she gets raped, moves. Detective comes over, to woo her.
Yeah.
And then like
to check on her.
Right, to check on her, but to really ask her on a date.
Yeah.
And then she's happy and
for reasons I know.
And then she's like, if you were like, wow, is she really happy? Is that really a smile? She says it's a beautiful day. Yeah. So you're like, oh, okay, then I guess
it's a beautiful day. I guess.
Is.
I mean, it's she's brown, but
a stranger that isn't it a beautiful day?
Yeah.
And I'm like, is she in denial? Like, what is this? Like, there was no aftermath. From like a traumatic, like the most traumatic experience. It's like violated twice. Violated as in getting into her apartment, and then the rape. I mean, that is, I don't know how you come out of that ever, but certainly not. And I don't, was it a couple days or weeks?
Yeah, it was like the next day or something. Hey, you missed work. And I was like, well, so it's been a day? I'm confused with, the timeline was a little confusing, which once again doesn't really matter. This movie isn't about that. I think maybe because Gordon was the cinematographer and the director, little things, maybe character development slipped through, because you have that opening, or not the opening scene, so you have the scene after the rape. So the cop's there, the female detective's there, Then her friend Andrea shows up, or Bob Lufrono.
Lufrono.
You remember these characters' names because it's Bob Lufrono.
You never heard that before.
But I think it was just some of the stuff they shot where it was like, she has a stutter for no reason.
The stutter didn't do it.
But like he's standing next to a bookshelf and it's all books on about stuttering.
Right.
You know, it's like, all right. I mean, you could have just told us, but sure. But then every shot of Andrea, I mean, had you not known the synopsis, you would have still known something was off with her because everything with her, she would look over and she was all dark except the light on her eye.
Yeah.
What do you mean? And you're just like, how about just, I think what it was is they showed their hands too quickly in this movie. Once again, it's retrospectively, it's always easy to fix a movie. But I just felt like we didn't build up to find out what happened. Like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, it was telegraphed. It was just like, oh, okay, the friend paid, the guy to rape her, but to tape recorder so she could listen to it over again. And this is what the friend's doing. Like, everything was just laid out. There was no, like, it could have been, like you said, like the horror suspense thriller, like the friend's there the whole time, and then at the end it's like, it was the friend. Could have been like the big reveal, and that was no big reveal. It's just like, was it 2 scenes after the rape, which was short scenes, like, here's the tape you wanted. Thanks.
Yeah.
She starts listening to tapes like, oh, so the friend's the bad person. Okay.
So then
after that didn't mean anything to me.
So it's an open plot or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, so we know who did it. And we're just trying to find out, I guess. At that point for me, when it's open, when you know who did it, then it's like, okay, what journey am I on here? Because I'm not on a journey to find out. We know. It's like, okay, then the why.
Yeah.
Why this happened. Maybe the why is the interesting thing. But I still don't know why, because what Andrea wanted at the end of the movie was, I want you to, moan for me or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay. So then she's psycho. I mean, she's in therapy.
Yeah. But in therapy, she's always talking about her poem. And talk about the therapist.
She's
was the
talking
most
about poem, right?
Disinterested
Right.
therapist.
He's just
he's like, she's like, I wrote another poem. You're fucking time.
Yeah.
It's like, you're like the worst therapist.
It's terrible.
Like, he's not even sitting there going, tell me about your feelings on this poem.
Yeah.
He was just like,
it's like another poem. Okay. Yeah.
And then then what is it? After the we're in the third act or something. I think you need to go to the hospital. Why was she telling the therapist that she needs to?
But she don't know why he said. And he's like, I've made arrangements for you. How about tonight?
Yeah.
I think you have an easier job if you cut out like the parts that channel the punch. If you don't show your cards right away. If you cut those parts out and leave a little more suspense, you have a better movie. But if you want to go to the route of opening it and letting us know, then you have like a hill to climb, because then you have to keep our interest.
Yeah.
And if it's at the end of the thing, it's like, oh, I won't hurt you, but I'm hurting you.
Yeah. Emily's like resolution was very just like, don't worry, she wouldn't have hurt me. Yeah, but you don't know that. She paid someone to rape you.
Yeah.
She would have hurt you.
Yeah, and she paid someone.
Yeah, like you found that out. Like,
yeah.
She was the last one to know, which I mean, I guess is some surprise, but it's even then, it's like, I don't know, like, tonally, it wasn't all over the place though. That was it. It was just weird tone shifts. That was it. It was like, overall it stayed pretty steady. It was poor music choices.
It was according to the credits, it was Ennio Morricone, and who's one of the greatest to ever do it. But I think we both think that the cues that they did have in the movie were just not necessarily scored for the movie, but something that maybe he had and that were sort of forced in here, but not necessarily scoring the moment, because they were just
you could have picked better pieces of music.
It was a weird choice. There were a lot of weird choices attributed to like first-time director or sort of not having it sort of.
But he's been around a lot of big at this point.
Yeah, I just think that he didn't. A lot of these moments weren't earned, and so that this sort of like tonal shift that just happens.
Yeah. And he could have been really, because he didn't write it, and there's not a lot of information on this movie in general, so I don't know if it was. He got the script that he kind of liked, and it was like the studio was like, well, we'll give you one shot. You have the history.
And does it speak on the homosexuality sort of sinister thing? I do understand, because I think at this time there wasn't a lot of representation of homosexuality. So though you may have seen this when you were 12 or 13.
If I watched,
Yeah, you wouldn't get that, but there subconsciously people would think, oh, see, this is what happened. And I don't think that this movie was alone in that.
Yeah.
So I think there was like a sort of, for lack of a better term, a campaign to do that. And so there was a lot of portrayals, I think, in a lot of different things where it was like, this sinister, predatory, homosexual person. And so when you have like a studio release like this, you think, okay, this is meant to be wide, and it has, it could have, it didn't, but it could have a far reach. So, the person is construed as sinister, and that's sort of the major part of that person's Andrea's character.
Right.
There's a little bit caring with the with her and Emily, but those were, she has ulterior motives, obviously. Yeah. So she's sort of one-dimensional, and so that I can see how that would be a problem.
Had I seen this at 12, I don't even know if I would have still got the idea that she was gay. Because kids, let me tell you something about the 80s. It was different time.
Yeah.
But like for me, what I knew as gay at the time would have been like the Village People. Not at 1980. We're talking like when I was like 12 or 13. Would have been like obviously Lamar from
Revenge of the
Nerds.
Yeah.
Because they also allude to it, but I don't think they ever say anything. You know. But I don't think I would have gotten the fact that she was in love with her. Really. Like, I don't think I would have gotten it as, like, romantic or, like, homosexual love or something like that.
I mean, I don't really know that had I not, read that synopsis. I mean, I would get this. There's something in there.
It out, yeah.
But, the way that, I would think that she would try to make those advances, would not be to, commission someone to rape her and then tape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there's some psychosis going on there.
Yeah.
And so that's the main thrust of this person's affection. It's not like, oh, she's really this homosexual who's in love with the protagonist, because she has plenty of times where they're together, and it's not violent or anything, that she's caring for her, that she can sort of make an advance to her. I mean, to go to the the sinister machinations of like getting someone to rape. That I don't think that ever works on anybody as a
Look,
I
would have never had him hurt you. Yeah, but you still paid to have him. Well, he didn't hurt me. I'm in love with you now. That was never going to be the end game.
Right. She's never going to go, oh, well, he didn't hurt me. Yeah. Let's go off in the sun together. Yeah. Cat in the freezer.
That was the funniest moment because you laughed.
Because that was just like, it's like, come on. Yeah. It's like one of those, not a cat.
And I like the fact that
in the freezer.
how long we stayed on the
Right.
shot of the cat. Not even for impact, almost just like, just stay on the cat. And
It wasn't in like a what you would call it, but it was like the face was like, it was
the
like
tongue was out.
screaming.
It was almost like a cartoon dead.
Right.
And you're just like, what are you doing?
It was cartoonish. And so I was just like, maybe not, maybe don't show that if that's what you got. Like,
Yeah.
But,
It was funny though, because you're just like, nah.
yeah.
I
I mean, it's just like,
It was just like, because the movie is, it's not that you're on the edge of your seat and you needed that laugh, like that jump scare, but it was just like,
like those are the missteps I don't
because overall I do think
excuse.
the movie's fine. The movie, I mean, hopefully this is not the tone it sets for our 80s journey, because I don't want this to be the tone of the 80s
Right.
journey. I'm actually excited to see a lot of, because almost most of the movies I picked for season 1 of 1980, I haven't even heard of. Some of the posters look vaguely familiar. I bet there'll be one or two going, I saw that on HBO.
Yeah.
This movie should not have been called Wicked.
No. Yeah, I think it was, and I thought I was a little not excited, but like sort of in the sort of opening when she goes into that apartment and she goes into the door to the whole place, and we see on the door there are windows in the door, and so he frames it in a certain way, and when she closes it and walks up the stairs, we see the windows, and I'm like, oh, so this
And
is
he's
gonna
going
be
for it.
this is gonna be, you know. And there was one thing where they were putting something together, and it was one of the characters was framed in a certain way, and the other sort of window-like things were distorted.
Yeah.
And it was, art shot. It's like this. Gordon is, even as a director, he's shooting his cinematography reel. The opening I thought was effective in that, I thought something's going to happen. So when she got upstairs and got to her apartment, I was like, well, the only reason why they're lulling us to sleep in this sort of slow dance to the apartment is because something is about to go down. And something did, obviously. But, just true to form, like in those, not just in this movie, but like in a lot of these 80s movies, there is a lot of like walking to the door, opening the door, shutting the door, putting your coat on the coat rack, putting your keys down, doing this.
Living life.
Living
life.
life.
It's like they're showing you, they're not like, knock, knock, boom, we're at the door. We're there. He's there. It's
Right.
like, which we're used to now. It's
Right.
like, okay, we're there. We're not showing you cooking the dinner anymore. We're showing the dinner.
Right. So there's a lot of business, as they say, it's going on. So, I don't know when the shift was, but they soon realized.
We'll see it though. We're gonna find it. Like we'll let you know when we see the shift, and all of a sudden we're going, this seems a little zippier in the editing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if we track it, MTV launched 4 months before. This is somewhat of a younger movie.
Yeah.
This is it. That was the shift.
Because you wouldn't see it in a Back to the Future. You wouldn't see this in Goonies. You wouldn't see this. Like, even when I rewatched those, I guess when I first started rewatching them, I kind of remember the pace being a little slower.
Yeah.
And then watching them go, oh, wait a minute, we're going in. This is like post MTV music video where it's like we get to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of why I sort of like those movies a little better, because I remember them a little more, just because, and why they seemed more quote unquote zippy is that and they got things going, is because the editing style just changed. There was no more time for that, and then home video and TV and people were just not. You change the channel in 5 minutes if it's just like 5 minutes of living life. As you say. It's like, well, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
What's on the next thing? So you have to kind of hook them and get it going. So, and less is more. So,
But overall, for our first journey into the 1980s of movies that we've either heard of or sort of fell under the radar, I enjoyed it.
No, I did too. I
don't know
why I was expecting to enjoy it a little less. But I did, and it was like I want to say well intentioned, but like they set out to make a good movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it's not.
I'm excited about our 80s journey.
Yeah,
To see the shift, and granted, I know this officially is the first movie released in 1980, but the first movie made in 1980 is not going to be really until like June or July. But this is January 1980.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good start.
And next movie, I have written down somewhere, but it'll be February 1980. So we'll just do one a month. So like, subscribe, follow, comment, descriptions of everything. There's going to be links in the video description of like IMDb and all that stuff, and the PO box. The website will be up soon. Maybe when you watch this, the website will already be up, and this will be redundant speech, which I will not edit out, just for that
There you
moment.
go.
Any final thoughts, John? Any final words?
Yeah, excited about the journey. Disturbing content notwithstanding.
Yeah.
It was it was a good effort. I mean, it's good to see like Talia Shire and Gordon Willis in his one turn as a director, but yeah, I mean, like I said, they set out to make a good movie. It wasn't a bad movie.
No, it's not a clunker at all.
There were certain things that I had questions about, but yeah.
No.
But yeah, it's curious to see the evolution of
Filmmaking.
how filmmaking does change in the 80s.
And that's going to be, that's what I'm most excited about, is the journey.
Yeah.
Because I love the 80s too much.
Ooh, I got a little creeped out.
All right, well, thank you for joining us on the Post Apocalyptic Show. This is Rob.
This is John.
Take it easy.